we're already running late, so I'm going to ask Ted to now start talking a little bit about some physical approaches that he takes to the snare drum.
Yeah, it's really about trying to get some techniques that you can fall back on, so that you have sort of a basis, a base technique and language that you can refer back to. So in my teaching, I really try and simplify how I go about playing the snare drum, and I break it down into two categories. Okay, one is strictly a wrist motion. It's called constant motion. I'll show you that first. Okay, for many of you, this may be very obvious, but it's important to practice this, especially when you're trying to hone your playing and hone your technique and make it cleaner. So constant motion technique, I set both sticks up at a plane. So there's a horizontal plane here, and my stick tips should be exactly the same place. Okay? And that's pretty obvious if we want to get even sounds. Yeah, if we want to get even sounds, this is not going to work as well. So now,
It's just physics.
It's just physics, yeah. So now my right stick's going to go down and up in one single motion. I'm thinking about a straight line down and up. I want to make sure I don't go up before I go down. I think most of us, it's a lot easier to kind of wind up and throw it. I do that too, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to make this really simple. It's like a piston in a car. It just fires down and back up into place. My left hand does the same thing. So working on hands alone and getting them to come up to this plane is important. I leave this other stick right here as my sort of measure. Okay, and now I'm going to alternate. One of the rules that I said is that the sticks are going to come up to the plane before the other one goes down. But you might be wondering, okay, then how do you play fast? You can't do that. And that's called the breaking point. You're going to get beyond the breaking point as we get faster. That looks like this. What about here? So as I'm going faster, really all the same technique is happening. It's just happening very quickly. So now my right stick, whereas before, it stops here. It does have to stop to turn back around. That's physics too, but you don't really see it. So that's when we're in constant motion. Okay, so that's the basis for me to play all of my single notes, so non-rolls. Okay, obviously there are certain exceptions to this. I did mention that I am going to incorporate arm into certain strokes. Okay, but I'm also going to, at the end of it, I'm going to use some wrist. Okay, so it's primarily a wrist motion. Okay, other exceptions are if I'm playing roughs. My grace note hand is going to sit lower. But you will notice that I am trying to get the sticks back to the same place. Okay, so that's my constant motion technique. It's very simple. I'm going for as clean as possible with a conservation of motion. I don't want to use any excess motion. Okay, the other one, by the way, I didn't invent that. Will taught me that, and Will learned it from
Soroka and Alan taught me, and then somebody taught them, and I don't really know where.
Yeah, so this is nothing new.
I'm glad I was paying attention though.
Yeah, I'm glad you were too. The other one is the other important technique that I learned from both Will and Alan Abel is the chicken wing, the famous chicken wing. Okay, this is a method for me to play all my rolls. Okay, and simply put, it's called a chicken wing because you've got this pivot that happens right about halfway down your arm, and it looks a lot like this. And of course, we're going to alternate it. And let's all just try that. So your strong hand, you're going to put that out. You don't have to even hold the stick. Just put it out like you have a wing. Put your other hand about halfway between your elbow and your wrist break. Now the goal is to pivot around that point without moving the hand below. Yeah, you want to try and feel it all the way up through the shoulder. Okay? And you'll notice that if you're doing it correctly, this angle is not straight up and down. So all those things I was talking about with the wrist, now we break them all when we do this motion. Okay? So two very separate motions. Very good wings out there. I'm really impressed. Okay.
Got pictures of that too, people.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. So now I got to figure out how I'm going to set up my fulcrum to get it to sit on the drum. Okay? And so now I'm just, through trial and error, I'm going to work on the right amount of press and squeeze in my index finger and my thumb, that I can get multiple bounces. So I can start with 2 bounces, and I can keep increasing that. So obviously you want to find the right amount of bounce for the role that you're playing. Okay? And so now I'm going to get the hands, I'm going to get the left hand to do the same thing. And just like I would do with constant motion, I'll do 4 or 8 or 16 of each hand, and then have the other one try and match it. One of the important things that I've learned, again, to use an athletic analogy is that runners, really great marathoners, what they're doing with their legs is they are turning over their legs so quickly. They're getting their feet off of the ground as quickly as possible. So it's almost as if they're thinking the amount of time they want their feet on the ground is as little as possible. And that's how you get things to turn over. I think that really holds true when it comes to playing the drum. Because for me, rather than playing into the drum, I'm thinking about all those upstrokes coming out of the drum. I'm trying to pull my arms out and turn them over so I get this wing moving fast. Okay? Some of you might be going, well, I don't do that. And it's fine. You don't have to. I will say that it's nice to incorporate larger muscle groups. And the reason I like it is because I run out of speed and power if I'm just rolling with my wrist. It's kind of all I have. Okay? So now if I'm rolling using the chicken wing, I can get faster. I can get things going a lot faster, and I get my dynamics, my loud dynamics, through speed rather than height. So I'm focused on getting things going pretty quickly. Right, so now, we need to connect what we're doing with constant motion to what we're doing with the chicken wing. The exercise is as simple as a measure of each. Learning to get the wrist to transfer into this motion as quickly as possible. Here's Capriccio Espagnol, third movement. You'll see that not only do I have different heights for the roughs, as I mentioned, but now my rolls are chicken wing, my individual notes are constant motion, and hopefully I can switch in between them cleanly. Exercise of doing 1 bar of constant motion, 1 bar of the roll, I start getting more comfortable moving in between the two. Okay? Here's another one, a little louder. Same idea, and now talking about roll speed. Shostakovich 10, the end of the second movement, I can pretty much, because of the tempo and the way things work and the dynamic, I can roll at the same speed as my 16th notes. So we're kind of cooking along, but if I were to do this warm-up exercise, it'd be like this. Okay, so that's going to sound like this. So yeah, it's really now I've boiled these excerpts down into these 2 techniques. And that's kind of how I'm approaching the snare drum. Yes, there are exceptions, and yes, there's a lot more to it. But if those are my fundamentals, I always have that to fall back on. So when I step up to the drum, I'm definitely thinking about establishing that plane for whatever my dynamic is. And by the way, I did a lot of loud playing, but this all works, and you need to do this for your soft playing too. So my sticks are starting and ending in the same place. Whatever your dynamic is, establish your stick height. Okay, Will's going to talk about some rhythmic ideas that are some of his fundamental things to think about as it pertains to the vibraphone.